I'm here with Christopher Hutchins, candidate for Austin City Council, District 1. Thanks for being with us.
No problem. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's start off with some of your more innovative concepts around water. Mm-hmm. You think we should be having 3D printers to print water? Is that being sarcastic?
I do believe in our lifetime that we'll be able to utilize the 3D printer as a tool to print water. That's the direction it's heading. I know that already they're working with on the molecular scale with 3D printers, and I wouldn't be surprised if within our lifetime we'll be working on the subatomic scale.
You okay?
So I think it might be surprising, but it's not going to be too long from now before we discover ways to deconstruct material in a constituent way and then reconstruct it so as to produce the things that we need.
Okay. How should we be managing the water we have, or the limited water that we have right now?
The best thing that we can do is to prohibit the installation of sprinkler systems, I think, in the new developments. Mm-hmm. That's probably the first and most practical thing we can do. After that, I think a lot of it has to do with reforesting land or foresting land that hasn't, historically been forested. Because, as we know, when it rains and the trees get watered by the rain, the leaves have water on them, the water vapor occurs, and there's more water vapor in the air, so the rain cycle becomes more frequent as a result of forestation. Okay.
You have some strong feelings about land use planning that is set up here in Austin, specifically Imagine Austin and Code Next. Tell us what you think would be better than that. You're not a fan of it?
I'm not a fan of it. I think that if we're going to develop anymore, and it's in the interests of the developers and real estate companies to develop, they should turn their attention east of 183. I believe that's where the Blackland Prairie starts, mm-hmm. and to me that seems like in eastern Travis County, I think that's a wonderful opportunity to deal with growth and also create green structures out there, create maybe a more the green and also touristy environment that I think the city is tending to create here in the central part of the city. Mm-hmm. And my main concern is keeping people close to their jobs and keeping people housed, because the cheap rent, as we know, is on this side of the highway, and it's not going to work for all of us low earners to be moving to Pflugerville, to Hutto, to Lockhart, as it's already happening. I think Code Next is really just a plan to push people out of their homes ultimately. And there's no plan to relocate any of those individuals either.
Okay, so if we're going to move people east of 183, we got to put other stuff there too, jobs and infrastructure.
Yeah, and I'm sure that many people have plans in mind about what kind of jobs, and if I get elected, it's not the case that incentives are going to end. I'm sure that.
So you would use incentives to drive direction?
No, I would not use incentives. Me personally, if it was my choice, I wouldn't use incentives to drive economic growth. I think I think this is already such a really great state to do business in.
Right.
Incentives just end up becoming corporate welfare ultimately. Mm-hmm. If any company is going to take an incentive, I would want to push for the requirement of a minimum wage of $21.60 an hour, because that's fair, and adjusted to a consumer price index, that's what a real minimum wage looks like.
All right.
I think.
So you are, illegal dumping is a concern of yours. Say what you think is happening and what should be done about it.
I know in the past, there have been issues where I guess now it's called Austin Resource Recovery. Mm-hmm. But the trash company has been dumping trash in different parts of East Austin. That was an issue before.
You're saying the city is dumping it there illegally?
I wasn't sure if it was the city or if it was like BFI or
Citizens?
maybe Central Texas Refuse, or there was an issue for a while with illegal dumping happening on the east side. So, and I know that happens to some degree still, whether it's done by companies or it's done by people.
So what should be done about that?
There should be more enforcement. There should maybe the land can be developed more into public park space, whether it's private or public. We should just take better care of the land around us, I think, and make it easier for people to dispose of their waste, because I know it can be expensive. Like if you tear down a house, you got to go take it to Creedmoor out there south 183. Then it can be really expensive.
Right.
You know.
So let's shift to air quality and energy to wrap up here.
Okay.
What do you think we should be doing in terms of generating energy or not generating energy? What sources should we be using or not? And what is your thoughts about local air quality management?
So, for energy, there are already these new innovations that have come out in recent years. Like there's the Bloom box. I don't know if you've heard of the Bloom box. There's also a new photovoltaic cell that, if I'm not mistaken, I forget if it's 10 or 100 times, but it can take a single photon and it can harness the photon and it can pull either 10 to 100 times more energy. It doesn't just absorb the photon, it allows for it to bounce around between the mirrors in the cell. And that kind of technology, those kinds of innovations and like research and development are the direction in which I think Austin Energy needs to move toward. And it would be, I think, better for the people, the residents, the public, if Austin Energy had a policy of putting themselves out of the job over time. If people were able, in the event that we create an environment where people have more direct access and are able to maintain their sources of energy.
Okay. Well, speaking of time, we're out of it, but thank
Okay.
you for being here.
Yeah, no
Appreciate
problem.
it.
Yeah.